police
in the morning.
Welcome back to this episode of B-Movie Brothers, where we talk about the what-if situation of a hypothetical movie. Today we take the odds of Herbert West, Re-Animator, strutting into the role of Rick's American Cafe in Casablanca. I'm Phantom Dark Dave.
I'm B-Movie Paul.
And I'm B-Movie Corey. And this is an episode of Hypothetical Movies. So, we're talking about Herbert West, Re-Animator, waltzing into the bar from Casablanca.
Yup. Two very different yet amazing movies combined. That's like my dream come true.
I wonder, how did Herbert West get from Miskatonic University in New England of America, the United States, and wind up in Morocco?
Boat trip.
Plane.
I mean, he's a scientist. I'm sure he figured something out.
Well, the way I figure it out is, who's to say Herbert wasn't in Casablanca before making it to the United States?
Oh, so maybe he was part of the Nazi Reich doing some secret experiments?
Well, if you think about Re-Animator, it talks about how he got his start by studying in Switzerland. And who's to say, we messed the timeline up a little bit, but he goes from Switzerland, travels on down Germany, through Paris and Spain. Right there is Morocco, Casablanca.
That's a good way to get away with his war crimes there.
Yeah, I mean, we could totally play the timeline because, Re-Animator, that goes back to the story of 1922, and Casablanca, that's around the 1938 storyline, so we can very well play with that.
I do think that you are correct there. I mean, especially when you look at the original movie, Re-Animator, where does Herbert West start at? He starts in Europe.
Switzerland!
And so we take that concept of how did he get from, his doctoral studies in Europe to America? Well, now how you're saying, he had to escape the country somehow because he seemingly murdered his professor. That's something that was never explained. Like, what happened?
That's because he probably stole it from the professor. I don't think he admits to it, but I don't think he was the original creator
of the reagent.
I don't think he developed that reagent serum, so to speak. In the Re-Animator film, we see them bust through the door, and that doctor is as good as already dead, or alive, so to speak. And Herbert West, all of a sudden, he vanishes and leaves. So I think there's a lot to be said about who really came up with that. Is Herbert West stealing the credit for that? Which,
Herbert West does to Dr. Carl Hill. You've stolen all the ideas. And that brings out a basic concept of, you always, as the guilty party, want to blame somebody else, for what you have done. So
right.
He's blaming somebody else for stealing the ideas of the person that he stole the reagent from. But I digress. We're not talking about what he did later. We're talking about how did he get there. And apparently how he got there is through Casablanca.
Turns out he was there all along.
Well, who's to say that the doctor who he stole these ideas from hadn't been to Casablanca already, and Casablanca is the place of kind of like the illegal world trades where the serum is circling.
Yeah, there's tons of criminals, tons of people trying to get away, so it makes sense.
And then all of a sudden, Herbert West, he needs to go down to Casablanca because he needs more of the reagent.
Or, because Casablanca is a place of all these cutthroats, this black market, this trade, there's bound to be plenty of murders and plenty of bodies that he can experiment on and try to perfect this reagent in a place where crime is abundant. And he's kind of like the little fish in the big pond. He's not doing anything to get noticed, not doing anything to draw attention, and so he can get away with just stealing the bodies and trying to bring them back.
Makes sense. Plus, there's a lot of... this actually means that we would see reanimated Nazis, at least if it takes place during the time period of the movie.
Yeah, nothing's better than a reanimated Conrad Veed. Yeah, some things I was tossing around with that idea was, Herbert West strolls into Casablanca for his first time, following all the footnotes of the person he's studying the whole time, and he strolls up to the cafe, and he just steals the line from the movie, of all the gin joints and all the towns and all the world, and I have to come to this dump,
I could see that. That seems like a line he would say too.
Oh, it's a Jeffrey West, or Jeffrey Combs kind of thing. But how great would that be to really envision Herbert West walking into Rick's American Cafe, and then looking all around, you see all the characters from the movie running around, and there he is, man. There's Humphrey Bogart's character.
Now, all I can think of is, in Back to the Future 2, how the events of the movie are taking place during the same time as Back to the Future 1. Just like this whole Re-Animator situation going on while Casablanca, like the situation with Rick helping the two get to the plane going on in the background. Like I can just, now every time I watch either movie, I'm just gonna think of that scenario.
Hey, and another thing too about, if you remember in the intro, Casablanca, when they're kind of going around the tables and they're showing all the small time criminal conversations that have to get hushed quietly, there's that one character that's like, "Bring me 15,000 francs in cash," and he just in cash. Hey, who's to say he wasn't sitting there trying to dose out more of that serum? It's like, what was he selling for 15,000 francs?
Maybe that's how he got the serum in the first place. Maybe somebody who wanted papers, like, offered him the serum or something like that.
Yeah, what do I got to do to get some letters of transit around here? Oh, I know a guy.
So Herbert West goes to Frank's American Cafe, and he strikes a deal with one of these criminals to get his paper. This criminal's loved one was just murdered by the Nazis, so he has to bring this person's loved one back from the dead as proof or as payment, because he's a poor college student. We've all been there. We know that. You're eating your oodles and noodles for 6 weeks on end, and
whole World War II's going on.
So he goes to reanimate this person's loved one, and it ends up backfiring, and this person ends up killing the person that he's trying to get papers from, and so he just goes through this like routine of trying to pay people off by reanimating people, and it either backfiring on him or he could reanimate that person and be like, "Look, okay, I know I fucked this up, and your wife or whoever killed you, but I brought you back to life, so you still owe me those papers." Like, just a very darkly comic thing that I think would be very befitting of Re-Animator.
I imagine if Herbert West reanimated somebody's loved one as payment for papers, and then that person killed the person who was supposed to give him, he'd just kind of steal them off their jacket and run. That seems like something he'd do.
Yeah, for sure. And then what's really got to be thrown in the mix is there's always a middleman, somebody who's crooked, and you got the perfect character with Louis in there, played by Claude Rains, the Invisible Man. I mean, from the taking part in all the illegal gambling, he's in on the deal.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe the serum works a little differently on him, and that's how he becomes the Invisible Man.
There you go. And who's to say that Rick was not the first person to tell him it was the beginning of a beautiful friendship? Maybe Herbert West had that with Louis all along.
Maybe Louis somehow convinced him to let the two on the plane and to basically be the good guy in the end.
I'm pretty sure he hides that reagent in the piano.
It's always in the piano.
No one looks in the piano, but that's what you get for not being a music guy.
Exactly.
And then you got Victor Laszlo. I mean, was his character any more grand than he does great things, but what really does he do?
And how
Everybody wants him. Everybody wants to arrest him, but no proof. What does he do?
And how did he escape the concentration in the first place?
Exactly.
Camp. Maybe Herbert West had a hand in that. Maybe Herbert West and the professor he worked for, maybe they were working for the Nazis, discovered this thing and hid it, and that's why they were on the run. And then he had to get out, so he goes to Casablanca, goes to Rick's bar, has the whole reanimating scenario, and yeah, it goes from there.
That is a very hypothetical thing of you to say, sir. Yeah, it's funny. You talked about the things that he has to do, reanimate bodies or whatever to try to earn those papers, and it's a good thing he doesn't he doesn't have to run into somebody that wants a little kissy kiss, because then you got to steal some of the some of the other classic lines. Could you imagine somebody grabbing like Herbert West by his collar neck T-shirt and saying kiss me if it was the last time?
Somehow I don't think he'd be too cool with that.
What? I was trying.
No,
to think about
probably
that
not.
earlier. Wasn't
Although in Re-Animator, he didn't really seem to care too much for the lady characters either. I'm just saying.
Wasn't there some kind of love underplot in Beyond Re-Animator, the third Re-Animator movie?
I don't think I ever saw that one.
That's the one where there's a rat fighting a zombie penis.
Oh, of course.
You know.
Oh gosh, yeah. I know I've seen all three of them, and I remember it was one of those things where I liked the second one, the Bride of Re-Animator, like a lot, and then I went and I rewatched it, and I'm like, okay, it's good. It's just okay. So the first one always stood out as the best one, but it was a fun trilogy though.
Beyond
kind of wish they would bring something else out of it.
He becomes a jail doctor, and that's how he experiments on things. But yeah, it would be really interesting to see some kind of love plot with Herbert West, just because he is that extremely awkward, like very, very bookish, very nerdy, and not very personable. So I think that like one-on-one interaction with someone of the opposite sex, other than him yelling at her to get out of the basement or whatever he does to Barbara Crampton.
Yeah, what guy yells at another girl, "Get out of my room! What are you doing in my room?
Why are you in my fridge?"
Right? Help yourself.
I thought I would make you a sandwich.
Yeah, there's only enough room for one cat in this room. Whoa. Oh, man. And then, of course, how funny would it be to have, like, Herbert West standing there, and he's kind of tapping his fingers on the piano, and Sam's playing away. He's like, "Play it, Sam. Play the theme for Re-Animator." Which, by the way, have you guys really listened to that theme? It terribly sounds a lot like the Psycho theme. Like, incredibly.
Oh, yeah. I honestly thought it was the theme from Psycho.
So close.
But I'm not quite sure. It's kind of like, did Vanilla Ice really rip off Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie? You know, there's just that one little note in there. There's one little note that changes it all.
Oh yeah, and you know, speaking of the exact same thing, which doesn't partake to this, but you guys ever? There was a song by Collective Soul that does the exact same riff as a Metallica song, and you just wonder how people are like, really? That's what you're gonna go for? But I guess all good ideas are inspired by others.
Pretty much, yeah. You gotta wonder, like, if they were really copying it, or it's like it kind of happened. Maybe they heard it and didn't know where it was from, and like, or I guess it's possible that it was coincidental, but it's kind of hard to tell.
You guys remember that pickpocketer in Casablanca?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Could you imagine him pickpocketing the serum? Like, what is this? He drinks it.
Oh god, that would be amazing.
And then that explains why you don't see the pickpocketer no more.
And that would also be another subplot that Herbert West would now have to go and find, this pickpocketer and get his reagent back.
Touche.
Also, what I was
and then how about that Russian bartender? That guy was crazy.
Oh yeah. One thing I was thinking was, like, since you said about the pickpocketer drinking the Re-Animator serum, in Casablanca when the Nazis shut down the bar, they're like, oh, it's because, gambling, that's illegal or whatnot. But maybe it's because there was actually a mishap with the Re-Animator serum, and they're like, oh crap, we have to shut down the bar till we get this figured out. Because if Herbert West was a Nazi doctor and created the Re-Animator serum from that...
Reagent.
Whatever. It's all the same thing. That guy drinks it, causes a ruckus, like, while Rick's doing his thing. Like, maybe that was the whole subplot of Casablanca that we never knew.
Yeah, Rick says that he doesn't stick his neck out for nobody, but we know he takes a percentage. And then who's to say at the end, spoiler, whenever the Claude Rains character gets it with the swifty Western drawl of Humphrey Bogart, that that body doesn't become reanimated.
It's true. Also, after he shoots him, and the other guy says, his famous line, gather the usual suspects, and basically covers for Rick. Maybe it's because Rick knew something about the Re-Animator serum, or they're afraid he did. And it's like, well, maybe it's better we don't, get him involved with the law, because too many people will find out about this.
This is true. You guys want to know something those two movies had in common that we have not mentioned? It's quite hysterical. I laughed at two different scenes, one in each movie, of what kind of hit was that? So I'm watching Re-Animator, and he picks up the head and he starts headbutting it. And I'm like, well, I guess what else are you going to do with a decapitated head? And then in Casablanca, there's that mix-up at the bar, and then he says, what did you say? What I said is none of your business. I'll make it my business. And he slaps the guy. Like, who opens with a slap?
It's very...
it's so comical.
Yeah, was he was the French guy and the German guy, wasn't it, in Casablanca? Like,
yeah.
I think it's just a French thing. It's just like, how dare you, bam.
And then they both take turns singing their anthems and really just creating that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy scene, but still awesome.
You know, the more times I actually watch Casablanca, the more I like it. Like, I've always appreciated the movie. I've always liked the movie. I've always understood the movie. But in gearing up for this podcast and just treating myself to a great movie more than one night in a row, I really fall in love with this movie and was like, Herbert West could really be in this thing.
Definitely, yeah. I feel the same way. Like, I watched it last night to kind of prepare for this again. I'm like, I remember the first time I saw it, and just every time I've seen it, I'm like, this movie doesn't get any worse at all. It's still as amazing, and you never get bored of any of the scenes, any of the lines, or any of the acting. It's just one of those.
Yeah, it's filled with so many of those diverse characters and plot lines and backstories, you know?
Definitely.
What did you think of it, Corey?
I never watched it.
I give him a synopsis of it.
Corey's like, I'm just going to freeball this thing. No worries. I've seen Re-Animator. I'll make it happen.
Paul was trying to tell me stuff. I'm like, listen, all you had to say was Morocco, 1940s, Herbert West. Okay, I got this.
But there's so much more to it that, like, God, it's hard to... Re-Animator is kind of like that. Overall, they're very simple premises, but there's so much that goes on there. Like, then there's this and this, and it's like, all right, calm down, you know, we get it.
It gets quite exciting.
But I mean, together, we can put that movie together.
Oh, yeah.
And like we said, you know, after, you know, being a Nazi doctor, you know, Herbert West and I can't remember the other doctor's name, you know, are on the run. The other doctor ends up dead. Herbert West goes on the lam himself, winds up at Casablanca where he's making shady deals, reanimating people. The reagent gets stolen, and he has to go on this quest to get it back. And all the time, there's this Moroccan hooker that's trying to get him in bed, and you know he ends up fighting Nazis and making his way, smuggling himself and the reagent, possibly in the piano, to America where he can attend Miskatonic University. And
yeah,
you know,
the whole time the hooker's like, why won't this guy sleep with me?
Yeah, the only thing is, at the end of the movie, I'd like to believe that Herbert West snuck onto the plane at the end of the movie. I thought that, like, just that ties it together so well. Like, if you see him, like, in the background, like, sneaking on while Rick shoots that guy and all that scenario plays out.
And he really would. He would use the confusion and the hubbub of that to cover his own self up. Because Herbert West, if nothing else, is sneaky and conniving. You know, he's also a genius, but...
Yeah, that creates an awesome visual, too. I picture Rick standing there looking up at the plane, and you see, like, a little green glow in one of the plane windows. Like, oh, no. It's off to Lisbon.
I need to get, like, a clip of that and just edit in, like, a green glow and, like, Herbert West, like, sneaking in the background.
I've never done any research. Did you guys ever see what they did to make that thing glow so magnificently?
I do. At one point I knew what it was. It's just a chemical reaction.
Okay, I was going to say I took a selfie with the glow stick and it did not turn out the same.
No, yeah, there's a really powerful chemical reaction that you can do that gives off that glow.
I think I've been inspired to go as Herbert West for Halloween one year. We just got to get our hands on this chemical.
There you go. Just go around reanimating people, you know.
Yeah,
you got to get in a character.
There are just so many possibilities that Herbert West could, like, potentially be somewhere and do something, that I really think he could be in any hypothetical movie and it would work out for him.
Yeah, I feel like he can, like, enter any film, and not only would the plot not be disrupted, it would somehow make it better. Like, just having a subplot of Herbert West with the reagent, and it would just make it so much better. Like, just seeing him, like, sneaking around in the background.
You know, originally the idea I had for a hypothetical movie was taking two unrelated movies and explain why they're related, but you really push motivation into saying, hypothetically, why is Herbert West in every movie?
There you go.
Well, and I could even see, like, the series NYPD Blue that was on forever. When Dennis Franz finds his son dead, that there's now this subplot where Herbert West is in New York City and reanimates Dennis Franz's son to find out who the killer is. And then, zombie Dennis Franz's son and Dennis Franz as Detective Sipowicz are now, like, chasing down this killer thanks to Herbert West. Like, it all makes sense when you add Herbert West.
Herbert West in Twin Peaks, like, in the first episode where that girl dies, there's a subplot where he, like, brings her back to life and has to deal with all that. I feel like any movie where there's a dead body, like, Herbert West can just be there, and it'll be amazing.
Herbert West is a movie fan.
Could Herbert West be the explanation of why the shark in Jaws is so insanely terrifying versus any other shark?
There you go, yeah.
Once this little baby great white shark, reanimate! Now super shark.
Herbert West in the movie Phantom, starring aside Ben Affleck, and Herbert West has the only ego in the world that can compete with the ancient enemy's ego. Like, it just makes sense.
But can even he cure Ben Affleck's, like, terrible acting?
I mean, if Ben Affleck dies and he reanimates him,
he'll become a better actor.
It's just the same or better.
Do you think Ben Affleck could play Ben Affleck?
I think he could try, but he'd still not be very convincing in that one.
Okay.
But but I think that's where we come to, is Herbert West goes to Casablanca, or Beyond Casablanca, or Casablanca Reanimated, whatever you want to call it. Herbert West successfully reanimates and escapes his way out of yet another ridiculous situation.
Definitely.
Sounds like Casablanca prequel.
Or parallelquel. How is that would that be a term for a movie that goes on at the same time?
Parallelogram?
Parallelquel? Like, it's not a prequel, it's not a sequel, it's a same time quel. Parallelquel.
A lot of sequels will do that. Like, a couple of these Saw movies were like that, and Back to the Future 2 was like that. Probably others, but I just can't think of it. But yeah, I think they just call them sequels because they haven't actually come up with a name for it.
Well,
give it time, you will see Herbert West in
first.
The Avengers.
Oh god.
Parallelquel, when a movie happens at the same time as another movie in the same series.
Well,
Parallelquel.
I think, like, with a lot of films, is that gives away some of the twists and turns, so they choose not to do that.
It's not the prequel, it's not the sequel, but the equal.
You can actually use that legitimately.
And it not be shock treatment.
God.
How would Herbert West fit into shock treatment? Would he have his own song?
Even he can't bring life into that horrible
I'm
film.
reanimating dead with my reagent. And that would be the song, because Shock Treatment is a horrible fucking movie.
Yeah.
And that was actually a much better song than just about every song in that movie.
As time goes by.
So there you have it, folks. Herbert West goes to Casablanca. And for Hypothetical Movies, I'm Corey.
I'm Paul.
Phantom Dark Dave.
Remember, be brave, be alive, be back for more.